want to ask you something that's a little bit difficult, and I'm just going to get out the way just through my own health
Sure.
struggles. But can you tell me a little bit more? Tell us about how your 10-year battle with cancer affected your journey and how it influenced your coaching philosophy and life philosophy.
Absolutely. Give you a little bit of background on my cancer journey. 2012, I was a girls' high school basketball coach in Texas, and a callus break open on the bottom of my foot, right below my third toe. And initially didn't think much of it because as a coach, you're on your feet a lot. But after a couple of weeks of
Mm.
it not healing, I made an appointment and went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine. And he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a little cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did.
Okay.
And he showed it to me. It was just a little gelatin sack with some white fat in it, no dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave either one of us concern. But he sent it off to pathology to have it looked at. And then 2 weeks later, I received a call from him. And as I mentioned, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having explaining to me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming. Until he just laid it out for me. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. You have an incredibly rare form of melanoma. And most of us think of melanoma as skin exposure or sun exposure, and it affects the melon, the pigment in our skin. He said, this has nothing to do with that. This is a rare form that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And because of that, he recommended I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center. So I had a surgery to remove the tumor on the bottom of my foot, had a surgery to remove all the lymph nodes in my groin. And at the time, melanoma was pretty much a death sentence. They did not have really anything to deal with it. So my oncologist put me on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon just to try to keep the cancer from coming back. The side effects of the interferon were that I had severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And as I said, as my oncologist used to tell me, Terry, we're just trying to kick the can down the road and buy you more time. 5 years of interferon became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees, which is usually not compatible with being alive. Somehow I survived that. But I had to stop the interferon, and almost immediately the cancer came back in the exact same area on my foot. That was 2017. 2018, I had my left foot amputated. The cancer worked its way up my leg into my shin in 2019, requiring 2 more surgeries. And then in 2020, an undiagnosed tumor kind of in my ankle area, for lack of a better word for it, grew large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone. And my only recourse right in the middle of the pandemic was to have my left leg amputated. And I also found out I had tumors in my lungs, and I'm still being treated for those tumors. And Glenn, I know this sounds like a very dark and ugly journey, and it certainly has been. But I'll tell you, I've learned several things during this, one of which is I don't really think you know yourself until you've been tested by some form of adversity. And secondly, I think cancer has made me a better individual.
I gathered that from just going through the things I think I told you before we did this, I study. And just going through that, it touched me in so many ways because you don't realize what you can be until you get tested. Every major setback, if you will, and now I'm of the frame of mind, I think that your story tells it. You may call it a setback. That's just because you don't know what good it's going to do for you down the road. And you did that. And I realized that could be a dark story, but it had a positive influence on your career, didn't it?
Yeah. And it's had a positive influence on other people. I'll give